Ashen is a third-person melee action game that gives the player a testing, but ultimately achievable experience set in a bleak but beautiful and hopeful world. You are thrust into a world approaching the end of its third age of darkness and tasked with helping to bring about the new age of light. Helped by the former guardian of the Ashen, you journey through a land of darkness and mistrust. Along the way, you make allies that return with you to Vagrant's Rest and help establish the settlement, which grows and grows as you progress through the game. These allies have
We
wonderful
tried to go
personality
fishing
and
in
are
the
well
dark
voiced
because we could
and
hear the
always have something
waters.
interesting to say.
Too skeg and quiet when there's no water about. Gives me the shivers. Flokir's full of surprises, but I've been thinking of slipping him one of my own. See how long it takes for him to notice the smell, eh?
These allies will send you on quests, and while some of them are marked as side quests, they all felt important to do, and the rewards are well worth it. The quests are also set out in a way that you never have to backtrack to complete. Rather, you complete a loop through the open world from one objective to the next before returning to Vagrant's Rest to reap the rewards. A feature of Ashen's is that these allies are not mere quest givers happy to have you do their bidding like in most other games, but they journey out with you as a
Give
companion
me
and
my
assist in the
hand,
dirty work.
so I might awaken
They also
thy
come in
power
very
to
handy when
strike
you'd rather
the
not take a
awakening.
hit to the face, as
Give
they
me
will
my
happily tank
hand.
damage, but are also very adept at staying alive, as often I was the one letting the team down. They also pick you up the first time you're down, giving you that second chance to power through. They did frustrate me on occasion, but they're a great tool, but not one that will carry you through the darkness. When you're not hiding behind your companion, the combat makes you work for it with enemies that are not merely cast aside until you learn the dance. There is a limit to the enemy variety, but still enough to make the approximately 20-hour experience not feel stale towards the end. Drawing obvious inspiration from games in the genre, you have the option of a light and heavy attack with a one-handed or two-handed club or axe. The difference in weapon size is as expected, and the trade-off between club and axe is increased stun or critical hit chance. Within a subcategory of weapons, there is also different attack patterns and speeds. One-handed weapons also come with the options of wielding a shield or lantern in your offhand. Once you've found your favourite weapon, you can level it up in Vagrant's Rest as much as you can afford. While attempting to focus on a two-handed weapon, I found you should always have a well-leveled one-handed weapon, as you never know when you might enter a dark cave and need to have a lantern to light the way. Combat and gear are simple systems that might leave veterans of the genre wanting more depth, but are enough to add diversity and choice where it's needed. The actual combat might not set the world alight, but Ashen achieves exactly what it sets out to in this regard. Very rarely can you rush into an area without considering what enemy types lie within. Even once you've learnt what is likely in store for you, you can be quickly punished by overcommitting or being too slow on the dodge or block. This makes for a difficult, but never overwhelming experience. You can also always rely on your Crimson Gourd healing potion to top you up if you take one too many hits to the head. Though, if you are low on health and out of gourd, be careful running into unknown areas. Ashen has plenty of enemies lurking around the corners, ready to pounce and get that sometimes deadly first attack in. Though, this will be a difficult lesson to learn until it happens to you a few times, as exploration is a strong suit of Ashen's. The beautiful world feels like it's evolving in front of you as you progress both Vagrant's Rest and through the world into new zones. Despite the dull tones of colour used, each zone has their own unique beauty to them. There's also a lot of loot waiting to be found in areas off the beaten track, which sometimes results in some of the better pieces of gear I found, but much more often resulted in crafting materials that I simply had too many to know what to do with by the end of the game. The loot is also conveniently marked, acting as constant reminders to explore, as even if you can't get to it from your current position, it'll be just around the corner from where you find yourself later. Some areas also feature a lot of verticality, which lets you take in the beautiful vistas and teases you as to what comes next. Ashen seems to have set out to be a simpler and more streamlined entry into the Souls-like genre, and it has achieved that brilliantly. Nailing the basics with challenging combat, a beautiful art style, and deep lore with a story that is ultimately about hope and rebuilding. Ashen is a great starting point for those wanting to dive into the genre that eases you in with a 20-hour campaign, and veterans of the genre might enjoy a more relaxed experience that focuses more on the combat and characters than deep stat systems. Ashen was developed by A44, a New Zealand-based developer who released Ashen as their first game. I recently checked out the website and saw that they were hiring for plenty of positions for a game of bigger scope. After Ashen, I will eagerly await news of what comes next out of A44.